We begin with a hard look at the double-edged sword of the nuclear industry. Right now in the U.S., there are 60 commercially operating nuclear power plants in 30 states. But there's a problem. This clean source of energy comes with a staggering price tag. One after another planned project has run behind schedule and wildly over budget. Today, there's only one nuclear reactor project under construction in the U.S. right now, kept alive by billions in taxpayer dollars. Joce Sterman takes us there to investigate the nuclear option.
Right here.
Every time Steve Prenovitz looks at his monthly power bill, he gets angry.
Pretty much everything has been passed on to the ratepayer. It's a high-stakes game. You know, people are getting screwed.
This is the source of his anger, the Vogtle nuclear plant in Waynesboro, Georgia, operated by Georgia Power. Crews nearby are working on Vogtle's 2 new reactors that have become the face of the industry's problems in this country. Reactors 3 and 4 are years behind schedule and more than a jaw-dropping $10 billion over budget so far. A seemingly bottomless pit supported by federal taxpayers and residents like Prenovitz.
Right here. You've got the nuclear construction cost recovery.
His bill includes an extra monthly charge for nuclear construction. For an average family, it adds up to $100 each year.
And what's the danger of passing on the responsibility and the cost to the ratepayer?
Well, danger for who? For the company, no danger. You know, hey, the more they screw up, the more money they make.
The $14 billion budget has swelled to more than $27 billion as problems have stacked up, including inexperienced contractors, construction flaws, and the bankruptcy of its original contractor, Westinghouse. But the troubled Vogtle project has a key source of support.
Why do I believe that this is the best path forward? Because Units 1 and Units 2 that were built in 1987 and 1989 on that very same plant site, they went over budget as well. But now, what is that? It is the cheapest energy in our state, and I believe Vogtle 3 and 4 will be that one day as well.
Tim Eccles is vice chairman of the Georgia Public Service Commission, which regulates utilities. Even though its own analysts concluded the project was, quote, no longer economic and suggested it be shut down in 2017, the commission ultimately green-lighted customer fees to keep the project moving.
It would be irresponsible for me to take all of the billions of dollars that have been spent and just throw in the towel because we happen to be running late. No, we're going to push through.
Do you have to keep spending and just continue writing checks just to get this thing done? And is that a wise way to go about this?
You know, I remind them that this elected Public Service Commission will have the final say on what is prudent and what's not prudent. Plant Vogtle's very, very important because if we fail, if we throw in the towel on this, we essentially cede this technology authority to Russia, to China, and to India, which is where the nuclear renaissance is happening right now in the world.
France derives 75% of its energy from nuclear, making it a key component of their power grid. China has 13 new reactors in progress. Russia has more than 20.
But it's still a massive regulatory scheme that these companies have to get through.
Katie Tubbs says the return on America's nuclear investments will be worth it.
The case for nuclear energy is so compelling that I think at some point we'll figure out how to do this right.
Tubb is a policy analyst at the conservative Heritage Foundation. She blames overregulation for the nuclear failures. One analysis says the average nuclear plant must pay nearly $9 million in regulatory costs and $22 million in fees to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission.
I think we have essentially regulated ourselves out of the business of nuclear energy. We've made it very expensive and difficult to run power plants, to innovate.
Meantime, the Vogtle project has now attracted support in the highest of places.
One of the things we want to do at DOE is to make nuclear energy cool again.
Federal Department of Energy Secretary Rick Perry recently offered $4 billion in new loan guarantees to see the Vogtle project through.
The message that gets sent on this plant, America is back in the nuclear energy industry, folks. We are back. We're going to be leading the world.
With all the enthusiasm, Greg Yatsko insists that continuing to fund the Vogtle project is throwing good money after bad.
I was assured repeatedly that these plants would be built on time and on budget.
He once headed the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the powerful federal agency that oversees all nuclear activity in the U.S. He opposed construction of Vogtle 3 and 4.
I mean, imagine giving somebody $15 billion, what they could do with that. Tesla started a car company that is revolutionizing the transportation sector with less money than that. So when you put it in that perspective, it really is a huge amount of money that's just really being wasted.
One notorious nuclear failure is north of Waynesboro at the VC Summer nuclear plant in South Carolina, which also ran over budget and behind schedule. The plant, owned largely by a corporation called SCANA, was supposed to have 2 new reactors online by last year, also paid for by taxpayers and local electric customers.
Significant progress has taken place on the VC Summer nuclear construction site. Indeed, nuclear matters.
In 2017, after 4 years of work, the project was shut down after eating up $9 billion, a quarter of that from electric customers. Those customers sued, and late last year, SCANA agreed to pay them back $2 billion they had been forced to invest into the failed project. From 2007 to 2010, 30 nuclear projects were in design or construction. Every one of them was halted before completion, except Plant Vogtle reactors 3 and 4. Yatsko, the former nuclear regulator, now says it's time for America to face a harsh reality check.
Do you view nuclear power as essential to our power grid at this point, given all the alternatives?
Not at all. I think we have many, many alternatives.
Should we pull the plug on it as a whole?
You know, I think that's a very difficult question to answer. I think the answer is yes. I mean, I think the answer is we should have pulled the plug 5 years ago when it was clear that this project was not going to succeed, or 3 years ago when far less money had been spent.
For now, the future of nuclear power in the U.S. hangs on Waynesboro, Georgia, and the fees paid by people like Steve Prenovitz, keeping Vogtle's new reactors on life support. They're now slated to go online in 2021 and 2022, 4 years late.
Okay, you've spent 10 years, which is true. This started in 2009. You spent over $10 billion for the whole project, maybe more, 12 billion, I don't know. How much electricity has Vogtle produced? Not 1 kilowatt hour. None. And then, as one cynic put it this way, they promised us power without cost. They gave us cost without power.
So Georgia Power did not agree to an interview with us, but in an email they said they remain focused on completing these reactors, and once they are done, they should produce enough power for 1 million homes in Georgia.
So why is it that you say that the future of the nuclear industry in the U.S. hinges on this Georgia plant?
Well, without Vogtle, we're left with just the existing nuclear facilities, and they're getting older. As many as 15 of them are going to age out and potentially close down by 2025. Even that is going to cost a ton of money. So without Vogtle, we run out of options.
Really interesting story. Thanks, Joce.